GitHub Copilot. So the GitHub Copilot CLI is a nice little tool that allows you to run a command line harness to build out your agents and create code and do research and other little tasks. Great little tool. There is one question that sort of comes up a few times, which is how do I run my own local LLMs? So what I've done is I've put together a little bit of a script that builds that up and sort of gives you the ability to run localized models as well as using localized search. So disconnect from sending any of the data that you do research out to the cloud. So the problem that we have when we're working on security stuff is we want to make sure that everything's being able to run locally. We can do still a little bit of testing. So the process I've sort of done at the moment looks at how Copilot runs next to the cloud. So we want to reverse that and have it going local. Have all the prompts and everything stay on your net. You don't want these things leaving it work. So the idea is to use the CLI, build a small little wrapper script which sets our environment variables up. And then these environment variables allow us to run Copilot without sending an information backline. So we don't need an API key. We don't need access to the LLMs per se to do this work. So how it works is a little wrapper script that I've got written, which loads a config, calls the Copilot CLI, and in that Copilot CLI, I've given access to an MCP, which is using SearXNG as a search engine, and it uses OpenAI compatible backend. So it will send it out. So in the example I've got it configured with Ollama, llama.cpp, and LM Studio. So this gives us the ability to bring any of our models that we want to do. These can be the standard open source models, or they could be uncensored models, or already jailbroken or fine-tuned models, your own type. So it just depends on what you do. So the other part of it is SearXNG. So SearXNG allows us to do searching directly. So rather than have the CLI go directly to a website, we can go through a search engine, bring that information back. The other way that normally happens is you'll use the MCP services through GitHub to do those web searches. So this allows us to keep our localized search engine as well. So you're supposed to have a subscription. You need a subscription to use Copilot Studio if you want to use the full balance options. Because we're not using an API key, this will run locally, but you'll still need to. You need a backend service. You need Ollama, llama.cpp, or LM Studio. I'm not going to go through how to install those right now, but we can look at those in another video. It does use Bash, curl, Python. It has a Docker container for XNG, and I'll go through the code as well. So there is a quick start setup process, and that setup process will create the necessary config files. Then you'll just have to build the container if you want the SearXNG and fire it off and away you go. I have created Windows and Bash scripts, so there are 2 versions. So trick is, Pro by default, we use the Copilot environment variable to say, don't send anything back, don't auth call, take it offline. Prompts and code, don't leave our network, we'll keep all those safe. Okay? We keep everything in environment variables, and nothing leaves, even the command line, all those things will remain local to us. If you're looking for the models, just a little bit of a rough guide here. You've only got a small GPU, you're only going to be using 7,000, 8,000. I'm not going to go through models, but have a look at those in another video. So I have a Ubuntu host here. This is a 2604 current version. Well, I've downloaded my repo. The repo will be in the description. In here, you'll see I do have the setup. I have the Copilot scripts in there ready to go. The MCP configuration and the environment. So I do have Docker already running on here, and I have already built the container. But to build the container for SearXNG, go on to SearXNG. There is a process in here, and to make my life easier, I have a management script in here. This management script basically will allow you to rebuild the container if you need to. So it'll give you each one. Offline, bring it online, need to, all that nice little pretty container stuff. Not going through Docker. So when we're looking at this here, the first step you'll do is you'll run the setup. And the setup will guide you through. It'll ask you to pick your default engine first. I'm going to use llama.cpp as my default one at the moment. I do have all of my LLM inferencing running on a different machine. It's not running on the machine, so I will connect over the network to that one. So I've got it hooked up to an internal IP address for these ones. So once you've accepted your default, it'll then ask you for the Ollama configuration and the default model for Ollama, the llama.cpp endpoint, and the default model for that one. Again, I'm using Quinn 3.5 here, 35 billion parameter. LM Studio as well gives you the endpoint for that one. Again, same model. All you have to do is just make sure you got your models set up correctly against each one. Once you get it up and running, it'll drop out and give you the script telling you to basically build the container first, which is what I've already done. And then you can start the Llama process. And it gives you a couple of command lines to go through each one. So if we just run Copilot now, using the Copilot script, it'll attempt to connect to the SearXNG container first, just to make sure that that's up and running. We'll come with that. It won't error out. It'll just say whether it's available or not. Then from here, we can choose our one. We can choose any ones we want to go to. Now, it will attempt to list the Ollama models and give you the opportunity to pick them if you want to. So I'll just quickly show that. So you can see here, it dumps out all the models that are currently on my Ollama host, and I can go through each one as each one of those. And then let it pick the default one. Once it goes in, fires up Copilot as per normal, and says, yep, do you wish to trust this folder? Yes, trust the folder. What you'll notice, bottom right-hand corner, it has the Quinn model down here. It does have the necessary structures in place. And we can issue commands to it. It'll go off again. Now, because we're using local, what will not happen is you're not going to see the thinking history sort of going through. It's going to go off and do a command, and then it's just going to dump the result back to you to say, this is what I found. This is what I. It's the only drawback we have, this method. But it's the first time we've hit this backend engine. So my backend service is currently now just spinning up the model. This is why I normally use llama.cpp, because I have that one pre-warmed and then have that running all the time with each one. But once it's up, fine. Good. So we are up at the moment. So now if I say, okay. It's going to turn around and say, okay, cool, not a problem. I need to do this. Hit my MCP. It's going to go off and do some searches for me. And if everything's working fine, you should get our results. So it's going back to untrusted content because I've set it up so it's such a way that it's hitting an endpoint I don't necessarily trust. So I'm just going to be careful with that. And it's gone out and done the backend usage. And to sort of show how this is working, if I was to click over to another page I've got here. This is actually the backend infrastructure as it's happening at the moment. So this is all. So you can see here, there's a whole heap of structures being set up. I can actually see what's happening on this box as I go through. It'll be a little bit hard to read, but let's just zoom in a little bit. Hopefully that. Okay. So as you're looking through here, you will see it's doing some stuff. You can see here's where I was running the container. It's brought the container down. It's brought the container back up. There's IP tables and everything being configured against each one. Container starts up here. Again, some little bit of activity happening on the IP tables. This is just the Docker process kicking off as per normal, so we don't worry too much about those. Okay, and we come down into here. Okay, this is just certificate checks. I have this running as an internal one because I'm doing inspection. I've got the certificates going through that process. Let's just skip over those. Okay, so we're down here again. Docker is up and running at this point in time. This is my curl check, so this is me kicking off process. It's just doing a little bit of a sanity check. And then you'll see there's a whole heap of requests coming through, and these are the requests going off to hacker one of those things. Copilot startup here. Okay, so these are all normal requests coming through. Copilot startup. Then from here, it's gone off. I've asked it to do a search. This is a search off to hacker one that I got it to do. It's gone off and looked through different things, found some information, returned the information, and brought it all back and closed. As I'm dialing home, you can sort of see the activity that's occurring, which is great. If I was to create a new session, yeah, and flick back over to my terminal, what I'll do is I shall close that down, start up again. This time I'll go to llama.cpp, load it up. So we have entered into here. So if I go back to here, this is the activity that's occurred so far. So it has started up, gone through some one request out to one address in here, which is this one here, which is a local endpoint. Different endpoint, but yeah, 1189, yep, which is the Docker container. Okay, and this is my IP address that I'm coming from on these machines. So it's all running nicely across that area. The command will go through. Go back to here. Okay, so it has returned the command there. Again, simple one, going through. Everything's kept local. Everything's talking to myself, and it's only doing by normal requests through each one. And I can tell it to go off now and create anything. So that is pretty much it. It's Copilot. It runs locally now on your machine. There is no instance against each one of those. So I've got it up on a GitHub repo, so that'll be public, and you can grab the scripts down. I'll show you what's in the package now, just quickly. Okay, so this is the Git repo. See, we have our setup script, which is the one that does our configuration against each one. There is a Windows version of that there. Normal structures in place for releasing a package, just sort of giving us a little bit of a rundown of what's actually in there. So you've got an SBOM there against each one, sort of highlights what I've tested it against as well, and where the containers are. This is your Copilot Rapid script. Does it? It is quite lengthy, it is quite long because it is doing a lot of sanity checks for me in the background and building up that model structure. Each one. MCP examples. So this is the MCP that does for the searching. Okay, and environment samples. So, and this is where it's pulling all that information from for each of the models against each one. That is pretty much it. Thank you.